So we're just going to go for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, today's session is going to focus on the movement of the pelvis and mobilizing the hips. We're going to do that in different positions, but mainly lying down, and especially nowadays when we don't have a lot of movement. Hello, Tilly. And we're kind of housebound. I think it might relieve some tension in that area. So Mike is lying with his back flat on the mat. He's got a little cushion behind his head to support his head, so his head is more in line with the rest of his spine. Knees are bent, feet flat on the floor. You can choose to use a little cushion between your knees if you feel a little bit out of control. I'm going to ask Mike to put his hands on his hip bones, which are those two bones in the front of the hips. And I'm going to ask him to try to move his pelvis backwards and forwards, but emphasis on the hip bone. So as he's doing this with his pelvis, his hip bones are actually moving away. It's a very tiny movement, and as he rocks his pelvis the other way, his hip bones are actually coming together. So it's coming together this way. And then as he goes, what he's doing right now, his hip bones are separating away from each other, and then the other way they're coming together. So quite often the tendency is to focus on the abdominals. Today I would like you to focus on the bones, or the rhythm of the bones. And the opposite of your hip bones are your little sitting bones. So you can even think of your sitting bones separating and moving together. So you can either focus on the front of the hips or on the back of your pelvis. And we come to a position somewhere in between, which is your ideal position. And then from this position we're going to try, I'm going to put my hand on Mike's right shin, and he's going to try moving his shin into my hand, which allows his pelvis to do this. So his right knee is going to shift in front of his left knee, and then from there we're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm applying a little bit of pressure, pushing the shin. So basically you're doing this with your pelvis. You probably can see the action of Mike's pelvis and hips responding. Also his spine is starting to respond as well, so it's not just the movement of the pelvis and the hips. So he's lengthening one side and then lengthening the other side. So making sure in this position that your pelvis stays level, so we're not rotating, we're just basically reaching forward in this plane. Okay, the next movement, I'm going to ask Mike to slide out his right, and his right leg can just kind of open out a little bit to the side. The leg can just relax out to the side. And then from this position, we're going to try, Mike has headlights, the headlights are shining up, and I'm going to ask Mike to shine his headlights over to 2 o'clock. So you're creating a little rotation in his pelvis, making sure that the knee doesn't, so Mike is going to do it badly. So the knee drops, so we want to make sure the knee doesn't drop. The knee stays facing up, but it can slide forward. So it's not fixed. It pulls in and it pulls away. So I would recommend maybe do 5 on each side, and then we're going to swap over to the other side, and again let the spine just respond to the movement, and then change to the other side.
If I work too hard, it can feel a bit pitchy in my lower back, so I have to remind myself not to really try and do a lot of work, but to kind of surrender to the movement.
So the other way you can look at this is you're dropping the hip down or the pelvis down on the straight leg, and then lifting the pelvis of the bent knee. So it's really a rotation. We're not shifting and we're not lifting the pelvis as one unit off. So it's basically sinking. If Mike would do that on a nice tropical beach, his left buttock would sink into the sand as his right hip lifts and then return. So he's making an imprint of his buttock, left buttock, into the sand. Let's do a couple more. And two, good. All right, and then come back to the center. Good. This time I'm going to bring your arms by your side. So we did that little rocking action in the beginning, so now we're going to go into a bridge. So from this position, you're going to press, so roll. So we're opening the hips, the front of the hips. Again, choose to have a little ball between the knees and then lower back down. Vertebra by vertebra. So sequentially rolling down. That's what we call the movement in Pilates language. If you feel like your knees are opening out, then maybe put a little ball between your knees. So his hip bones now are opening out, and then on the way down, the front of the hips are closing. And I'm going to do just one more. And then easing back down. Good. So from here, just try bringing your heels a little bit closer towards your buttock. And we're going to try side bending. So this time Mike is going to side bend. There's a cat in the way, so let's side bend to the left. That's it. And you're going to try grabbing with your left hand, your left ankle. Now, this might be difficult for some of you, so I would recommend to grab a dyno band or an elastic band or a pair of leggings and put it around your ankle, and then making sure that you have something to hold on. If your arm is just kind of resting on the floor, it has a slightly different effect. So Mike can grab his ankle, but he can always also grab the dyno band as a demonstration. The other arm is going to reach over his head. That's it. So we're trying to get a little reach from your little pinky right into this little pinky there. So nice side bend of the body. And then from here, so I'm going to ask Mike to push his feet down into the floor, lifting his hip, pelvis and spine. And then from there, sequentially rolling the spine down, trying to stretch the knee and the little finger away. So he gets a nice opening into the side of his body. Reaching. Good. And then ease back down. So roll down and almost feel like both buttocks cheeks are landing at the same time. So quite often the tendency is for this cheek to end up first on the ground and this one. So we're going to try just focusing on a side stretch without too much rotation. How does that feel?
Nice.
So really having that sensation of reaching through the little finger and the knee on the opposite side. So you're stretching the pelvis away from the rib cage. Let's do that one more time, yeah. And easing back down. So he's got a nice articulation of his spine on the way down. Good. And then come back to the center. And then we're going to go over to the other side. So again, choose to have a band, grab your leg or grab something. So we don't want to have just the arm in open space. So from here, this position, arm over the head. Again, if this feel uncomfortable position for your arm, you can always put a little cushion underneath. So this is a little bit elevated. I don't want you to create any tension in the shoulder there. So a block or a book or something that feels like, yeah, my shoulder is not jammed in this position. So again, Mike is going to push down into his feet. So he's got a nice articulation through the spine, and then we're reaching through the little finger, through the knee. So you're trying to separate those two bony structures, the rib cage and the pelvis away. And again, reach. And down, and again making sure as he sequentially is rolling the spine down, both buttock cheeks are resting or touching the floor at the same time. 2 more. So again, you can inhale on the way up and exhaling on the way down, or you can do double breath. Double breath meaning just exhaling on the movement and inhaling on the pause. Last one. And coming back down. Good. Alright, beautiful, good. And then come back to the center. The arm's going to be next to the body again. And then from here we're going to go back into the bridge. So you're pushing down into the feet. And then I'm going to ask Mike to literally shift his pelvis from one side to the other. I'm going to grab my stick. So basically what I want to point out with my stick is that Mike is not doing this, not moving away from the stick. So he's just keeping it. If this would be a spirit level, he would keep the spiral. So each time as he shifts from right to left, he's going to go a little bit further down, touching the floor gradually with his lower back, then his pelvis, and then the rest. Good. So that's just, stick is just there to give you a little bit of an idea what to do and what not to do. So we're going to try that again. So pushing down. Good. So we're start from the rib cage. So you're literally just shifting the rib cage and then lower down towards the lower back, shifting, and then lower towards the pelvis, shifting, and then come back to the center. Okay. So one more time. And again, shift. So quite often we feel a little bit tight in the rib cage, especially as we don't do a lot of breathing, being stuck in the house, not having a lot of fresh air. So try to really start the movement from the upper rib cage down into the lower back and then the pelvis. Good. Now just bring everything together as a finale. So pressing the hands down, again, Mike is going to lift his pelvis into a bridge. Then reaching the arms over the head, and then stretching again through the little finger, through the fingertips, rolling the spine down sequentially, and then reaching the arms towards the wall behind you, up to the ceiling, towards the wall in front of you, and then let the head lift. Good. And again, just move the head from side to side, there's no tension. And then reaching the arms away as you're lowering the spine back down. That's it. So try not to just relax the arms. And again, so we're going to press down into the feet. We're reaching the arms overhead. And again, the arms do not have to touch the floor. We don't want to collapse into the shoulders. So just finding that nice length through the spine and then rolling the spine back down, reaching through the fingers, especially the little finger. And then reaching the arms up to the sky. And then peeling the head as Mike is doing that. Keep your pelvis really nice and stable so there's no tucking happening. And then roll. It's almost like you're rolling your head away from your arms and then press back down. So we do that one more time. So pressing down into the feet. Reaching the arms overhead. Make sure that you're opening the chest, so don't bring the arms too low that you start to shrink, and then roll the spine down, stretching, feeling the collarbones widening, back of the ribs widening, back of the lower back, the pelvis, and then reaching the arms up and pressing down, like I create a little bit of tension here, and then keep that tension as you roll the head away from your fingers, and then pressing the hands down. Good. It's a little sequence for today, focusing mainly on the pelvis and the hips, and then a bit of the spine as well, because nothing works in isolation. I hope you've enjoyed this little 10-15 minute session, and if you have any questions, please do reach out on our Facebook page. We're happy to help.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Well done, Lou.
Thank you. You're good controlling sometimes.
Just came out. That can happen sometimes. Oh, we can leave that in the outtakes.